The world feels more unpredictable than ever, right? And if you're a leader, that creates a huge challenge. How do you make these massive, critical decisions when you basically have an incomplete map of what's coming next? How do you plan for a future you can't see? Well, today we're going to unpack a really powerful way of thinking that's designed to help you do just that. But first, let's start with a big question. What is the actual, tangible cost of a failed imagination? And I know, it sounds kind of abstract, but for some of the biggest companies in the world, the price tag is very, very real. We're talking billions. And it all goes back to one of the most legendary blunders in the history of business. Okay, so picture this. It's 1981. IBM, the absolute giant of the tech world, is looking at this new thing, a personal computer. And honestly, they were pretty skeptical. Was this a real market or just some passing fad for tech geeks? So they did what any huge company would do. They ran a forecast. And here's where it gets absolutely wild. Just look at these numbers. IBM's really smart analysts predicted the entire global market would be about 240,000 computers, total. And then it would just die out. The reality? The market exploded to 25 million units. I mean, that's not just missing the mark. That's being in a totally different universe, off by a factor of 100. They saw a tiny little niche, but what was actually happening was a revolution. And this is what futurist Peter Schwartz points to. He says this wasn't just a spreadsheet error. The real problem, in his words, was a failure of imagination. See, IBM's mistake wasn't in their math. It was in their inability to imagine what a regular person, a non-engineer, might actually do with a computer in their own home or on their own desk. Look, the thing is, this IBM story, it's not just about them. It's about all of us. It points to this fundamental human challenge that affects every single one of us. We all walk around with these mental maps of how the world works, our assumptions, our beliefs. The big problem is sometimes those maps are just plain wrong. For a perfect example, get this. For about 150 years, map makers in Europe drew California as an island. Seriously. Early explorers sailed into what we now call the Gulf of California. They saw water on both sides and just assumed it kept on going. And that idea, that assumption, it stuck. It became an accepted fact, a key part of their world map, even though it was completely, totally false. And this is the best part, or the worst part, depending on how you look at it. Eventually, missionaries on the ground literally walked from Arizona into California. There was no water, so they wrote back to the expert mapmakers in Spain and said, hey, newsflash, California is attached to the rest of the continent. And the response was basically, no, you guys are in the wrong place. The map is right. We get so attached to our maps, we'd rather believe reality is wrong. And that's the bottom line, isn't it? If your fundamental map of the world is wrong, then your strategy is going to be wrong. Your big decisions are going to be wrong. You'll end up sending your whole company trekking over a mountain range, convinced you're going to find the ocean, only to find more desert. Okay, so if we can't trust our forecasts and our own mental maps can be totally wrong, what are we supposed to do? Just guess? Well, no. The answer isn't about getting better at predicting one single future. It's about getting better at planning for multiple futures that could happen. And that's the core idea of scenario planning. It's not about gazing into a crystal ball. It's a real discipline. It's about getting in a room and building a few different, totally plausible stories about what the world could look like in 5, 10, or 20 years. Then, you take your big, expensive strategy and you stress test it against each of those stories. The goal isn't to be perfectly right. The goal is to build a plan that's tough enough, resilient enough that it won't be fatally wrong, no matter which of those futures actually comes to pass. So how do you actually start thinking this way? Well, according to Peter Schwartz, it really boils down to developing 3 specific skills. The 3 pillars are ruthless curiosity, boundless imagination, and radical collaboration. Let's dig into what these actually mean because they're a total game changer. First up, ruthless curiosity. This, right here, is how you avoid the whole California as an island trap. It's about having this relentless drive to question your own assumptions, the things you know are true. The best futurists are basically data junkies. They read everything, science, culture, art, economics, always on the hunt for that one piece of information that proves their own map might be wrong. And number 2, imagination. This is the piece IBM just didn't have. It's that ability to look at some new trend or new piece of technology and not just ask, what does it do now, but to ask, what if? What could this become? How might people use this in ways no one expects? It's about seeing a revolution where everyone else just sees a hobbyist's toy.
And finally, collaboration. Because let's be real, you can't see everything from your own desk inside your own company. You have blind spots. So this requires some humility. It means bringing in outsiders, people with totally different backgrounds and expertise, and actually truly listening to what they have to say. And there's a fantastic story about this from the music business. So AT&T was panicking about digital music piracy. They were losing their minds. So they bring in the rock star Peter Gabriel for his perspective. The execs are there, totally freaking out, seeing piracy as just, theft, pure and simple. But Gabriel, he saw something completely different. He told them, look, I'm going to treat that pirate CD as free advertising. I'll make my money on the concerts, not the CDs. He saw a whole new business model years before anyone else, just because he had a different map of the world. So there it is, that's the toolkit. And you can ask these questions about your own team right now. Are we genuinely curious, or are we just defending our old maps? Are we using our imagination to see what's possible? And are we humble enough to collaborate and find the things we can't see on our own? And at the end of the day, this is about more than just a better quarterly report or avoiding some big mistake. This is about fundamentally changing your relationship with the future, about moving from a place of fear and anxiety to a place of confidence and preparation. Schwartz says something I think we can all feel, that this fear of the future is one of the worst problems that we have today. It's so true. When we're afraid of what's coming, we cling to what we know. We double down on our old, comfortable maps. Scenario planning is the tool that gives us the power to face that uncertainty head-on with confidence, because we've already explored the possibilities. We're ready. So that brings us back to the beginning. But now the question is for you. Think about your own company, your own team. What's the California is an island belief that you all hold? That one fundamental assumption you've just never thought to question. What future, with all its threats and all its amazing opportunities, is your team failing to imagine right now?